No one cares about your cars in Canada. Car theft, for some reason, is up over 200%, even in a specific area like Toronto. And all of that is attributed or can be blamed on our Liberal government, but specifically Justin Trudeau. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I really want to encourage everyone to smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet. It does really help grow the channel. Once you're subscribed, there's a little bell icon that shows up. If you mind just doing me a favor and clicking that bell icon, it just adds a layer of insurance so you can actually be notified of upcoming videos, but more specifically and importantly, live streams. Question period is set to resume next week, and the only way that you're actually going to be able to see it is, one, if you search for it, or two, if you're notified of it. So that bell icon does really add that layer of insurance to make sure that at least some notifications are sent out. In this first clip, we have Justin Trudeau and Pierre debating car theft in Canada. I can't even believe this is a real thing. It's absolutely, it's like Canada is a hub of insaneness, of the woke plague. You got a bajillion different genders, a bajillion different pronouns, and now it's a place for thieves to steal cars and get away with it. Soft on crime policy. I'm scared shitless about the future of Canada, but never mind what I'm thinking about. Let's take a look at this debate between Pierre and Trudeau.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Page 75 of the BC budget confirmed that they were bringing in the tax hike on April 1st because they're forced to by federal law. Yeah. And according to the Vancouver Sun, the NDP budget and fiscal plan presented in February says the carbon tax will raise $9 billion over 3 years. The New Democrats plan to give back $3.5 billion in climate action tax credits to low and middle income folks and spend the rest as they see fit. So will the Prime Minister end the carbon tax coalition with his provincial NDP BC counterparts so that British Columbians can get their money back?
Yeah. Folks, that is the only way Justin Trudeau can make a woman wet, is by throwing water on her.
I think that for someone who's been railing against our plan to fight climate change and put more money in people's pockets for months now, he'd actually have done his research to understand how it works.
Speaking of railing, Trudeau's not getting any, so he's trying to rail all of Canada.
Their own plan to fight climate change, as long as it is sufficiently rigorous to be fair to the other provinces that are also doing the same. That's what a Canada-wide plan to fight climate change is all about. Yes, the federal backstop gives back more money directly to Canadians in 8 out of 10 cases, but BC and others are free to do their own thing.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
This Prime Minister's catch and release policies and his mismanagement of our ports. Car thefts have gone up by over 200% in Toronto, 100% in Montreal. There are 12,000 cars stolen in Canada's biggest city every single year. That is one car stolen every 40 minutes.
No, they don't identify as car thieves.
Common sense plan to scan every shipping container, reinforce our ports, and put career car thieves behind bars.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, cracking down on auto theft starts with going after organized crime. $121 million for Ontario to crack down on organized crime and car theft, and the Conservative Party voted against it. Public Safety Minister announced $28 million for border services in collaboration with police across the country. And to stop organized crime, we're cracking down on money laundering, something the Conservative Party also voted against. We will take no lessons from the Conservative Party that chose to weaken our borders and pull money back from enforcement services any chance they got while they were in government.
They did that. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
There's something so wrong with Justin Trudeau. He is so delusional. I don't know if he's got his bedsheet over his head late at night and he's farting and breathing in his own gases, but the things that he's spewing, it doesn't make any sense. He genuinely thinks that Canadians are spending a fraction of what they're actually getting back in terms of carbon tax. This guy doesn't understand basic math. Next up, we have Pierre and Justin Trudeau going toe-to-toe talking about affordability. Here's the clip.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Prime Minister is not worth the cost to our economy. Real per-person GDP has grown slower in Canada than all the rest of the G7. Dead last. In fact, our per capita GDP is smaller than it was 5 years ago, the worst record since the Great Depression. And the Parliamentary Budget Officer calculates that the carbon tax will blow an $18 billion hole in the size of our GDP, $1,000 in economic cost per family. If he really thinks that's worth the cost, why won't we have a carbon election to...
Call a carbon election, see what Canadians want.
At the same time, our population is growing faster than other countries around the world. If you're going to be telling the full story.
You are letting millions of people in.
Price on pollution puts more money
It's not more babies.
out of 10 Canadian families in the backstop provinces. This is a fact recognized by the Parliamentary Budget Officer and recognized by Canadians who see both a real plan to invest in the jobs and careers of the future, the competitiveness that Canada needs, and the fight against climate change to keep us safe while putting more money in the pockets of Canadian families from coast to coast to coast.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The government gets bigger, the people get poorer. After 8 years, he's not worth the cost. He's blowing another $18 billion hole in our GDP with this carbon tax, a hole that will mean lower wages and a lower quality of life for the Canadian people. The Prime Minister now wants to quadruple the carbon tax, starting with his April Fool's Day hike. When will he realize that after 8 years of Canadians lining up in food banks and living in tents, he's not worth the cost?
And dumpster diving.
Well, Prime Minister.
Don't forget about that.
Speaker, the price on pollution returns every dollar that it collects to the jurisdictions in which it's collected. That is the fact that built our program, our fight against climate change. The reality is we're creating jobs, we're creating growth, and we're putting more money back in the pockets out of 8 out of 10 Canadian families in backstop provinces. This is the plan that fights climate change, builds a stronger economy, and supports Canadians right now with rebate checks that the Leader of the Opposition would cancel.
Yeah, we're paying more. You know when you borrow money or lend money rather to a friend and your friend just kind of doesn't really seem to care about repaying you and you let it fester for a little bit and eventually you're like, hey man, where's that money? Do you mind if I get that money? Have you I see that you're going out to dinner and you're buying things, you're going on vacations. Do you mind if I get that money? And your friend just doesn't really ever do that. Okay, so never mind the friend title. That's what's happening with Justin Trudeau. And the only person that's really trying to hold him accountable, aside from the Canadian people, is Pierre Poilievre. Pierre is saying, hey, Trudeau, you stole $2 billion from the Canadian taxpayers. When are you going to pay it back? Let's roll the clip.
The Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Finance Minister claimed that the carbon tax was revenue neutral, that it gave back, that the government didn't keep a single penny. Well, it turns out they keep hundreds of billions of pennies. They've collected so far $20.7 billion and only paid back $18.6 billion. In other words, they profited by over $2 billion by pillaging the pockets of Canadians. When will the Canadian people get their $2 billion back? And if he's sure about taking it away, why doesn't he call an election to defend it?
Are you kidding me?
Right Honourable
They've
Prime
kept
Minister.
$2 billion?
Mr. Speaker,
I had no idea about that.
the Conservative leader is now complaining about $2 billion that he would never give to Canadian businesses, would never give to Canadians, because he would scrap the Canada carbon rebate. We are actually delivering money across the country to communities, to individuals, to small businesses, to Indigenous communities, to fight climate change and help afford their groceries. He wants to eliminate the carbon rebate. He wants to eliminate the plan to fight climate change. He has no plan for the future of the economy.
They have no plan with that $2 billion. Except lining.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Prime Minister is not worth the cost to our economy. Real per-person GDP has grown slower in Canada than all the rest of the G7. Dead last. In fact, our per capita GDP is smaller than it was 5 years ago, the worst record since the Great Depression. And the Parliamentary Budget Officer calculates that the carbon tax will blow an $18 billion hole in the size of our GDP, $1,000 in economic costs per family. If he really thinks that's worth the cost, why won't we have a carbon election to...
Call a carbon election, see what Canadians want.
At the same time, our population is growing faster than other countries around the world. If you're going to be telling the full story.
You are letting millions of people in.
Price on pollution puts more money
It's not more babies.
out of 10 Canadian families in the backstop provinces. This is a fact recognized by the Parliamentary Budget Officer and recognized by Canadians who see both a real plan to invest in the jobs and careers of the future, the competitiveness that Canada needs, and the fight against climate change to keep us safe while putting more money in the pockets of Canadian families from coast to coast to coast.
I'm trying something out. If you want to contribute to fighting climate change, there's a link down in the description to my PayPal. You could donate. You could donate money, or you can buy merch. I'm just curious if a financial transaction is actually enough to help fix the weather. So if you want to contribute to fighting climate change, you're more than welcome to by visiting the link down in the description below. You could donate however much money. Now, just remember, the more you donate, the more of a financial transaction, the more we can fix the weather. And that's how the Liberals sound. Completely delusional. Next up, we have Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre going toe-to-toe on that absolute insanity. Here's the clip.
Parties, there's been an outbreak of common sense on the carbon tax. In fact, Nova Scotia Liberals, NDPers, and Conservatives passed a unanimous motion in their legislature this week calling on their federal MPs to vote against the Prime Minister's 23% carbon tax hike. No wonder. The cost of the carbon tax to the average Nova Scotia family will be $1,605, according to the Parliamentary Budget Officer. $1,605. How much will be the rebate for the average family?
He's going to say that the rebate is more than what you pay.
The federal price on pollution is a backstop. It's a system that we put in place to both fight climate change everywhere across the country and put more money back in the pockets of Canadian families where it applies. Every single province had and continues to have the option to replace the federal price on pollution with their own program, as long as it is as rigorous and stringent as the federal price on pollution. As long as they have a plan to fight climate change, they can do what they want, as long as it's strong enough. That's the options the provinces have. So they can take that option. We're going to keep putting money.
Drop some L's for Trudeau.
That's demonstrably false, because Nova Scotia actually has a climate change plan, which he rejected and overrode with a federal carbon tax that is opposed by New Democrats, Liberals, and Conservatives unanimously in the province's legislature. But you notice he wouldn't answer my question. He's been bragging about these rebates, but then when we talk about the cost, all of a sudden he forgets the rebate. So I'm going to give him a second chance. In the province of Nova Scotia, the cost to the average family will be $1,500. $1,500. $1,500 per Nova Scotia family. How much is the rebate?
Pretty simple question, and he's not going to give us an answer.
That is simply not true. The reality is, for 8 out of 10 families right across the country in backstop provinces, families do better off with the Canada carbon rebate than they do with the extra costs of the price on pollution. This is a plan to fight climate change, but it's also a plan to put more money in the pockets of families from coast to coast to coast. Now, the Conservative leader doesn't care about fighting against climate change, and he doesn't care about affordability either, because he would rip up the rebate checks and he would do less on fighting climate change. We're going to keep delivering for Canadians.
Oh my God. Oh, one of the worst people to listen to in the House of Commons, aside from Justin Trudeau, aside from Jagmeet, aside from all the Liberals, specifically, is Chrystia Freeland. Her voice is like nails on a chalkboard, which, by the way, if you really dislike her, we call her the Wicked Witch of the North. I have a sticker that I sell, and that is linked down in the description below. We're going to take a look at the final debate where Chrystia Freeland is just going into full defensive mode and playing the victim. And that is what she does best. Here's the clip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll tell you where Albertan MPs are. They're standing up for their constituents and voting non-confidence in this government that needs to be replaced. Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Liberal NDP government, upwards of 50 active military families are using the food bank, and I just visited one in Oromocto, New Brunswick. 50 families who are serving at Base Gagetown, Canada's largest military base. This is an absolute disgrace and completely unacceptable. Now they're adding insult to injury by hiking their punitive, ineffective, and useless carbon tax. When will they finally listen to Canadians and show some respect to our nation's finest and
Oh, dude, that was loud. They even cut the mic and it came through. Holy crap.
The Honourable Minister for Rural Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, I really find it quite rich coming from the member opposite, from Tomamaquaquack, when they voted against a raise to our hard-working DND employees. You know, I also would like to ask the member, they voted against the increase for ACOA last fall when they stood and we had the all-night morning marathon. I'd love to ask him what he was going to say to the 106 projects that were funded in his riding that he voted against. Trust me, we'll be telling them that we have the backs for small businesses in rural New Brunswick and rural Atlantic Canada.
Hey, folks, if you haven't yet, smash the like button. We're 100 away from 1,000.
Voting non-confidence in this government that needs to be replaced. This government has caused the inflationary crisis through reckless spending, and now they're hiking a carbon tax by 23% on gas, heat, and food on April 1st. If they really cared about Canadians, especially those who sacrifice so much in service to our country, they would listen to the well over 70% of Canadians who are demanding them to get off their backs and axe the tax.
Look how rowdy the Conservatives are, man. They actually believe in the cause.
Mr. Speaker, there is so much shouting today that I can forgive the member opposite for not hearing earlier today the good news for Canadians, which is thanks to the hard work of Canadians, and it has been a challenging time. Inflation in February.
Interest rates are at historic lows, Glenn.
And that followed the numbers for January. Inflation back to the Bank of Canada's target range. This is good news for Canadians who have been through a hard time. We support Canada and Canadians. All they want to do is cut, cut, cut.
Bravo.
That's where we're going to end today's video, folks. I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments. What was your favorite parts of these debates? On your way out, I'd really like to encourage everyone to smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't yet already, and I hope you really consider turning post notifications on. It's that bell icon that shows up once you are subscribed so you can actually be notified of upcoming videos and also live streams. I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.